I think the biggest thing is working with people that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's your time to buy, you want to buy something, you want to have a home,
Right.
and we can work with you to get you in. There isn't any wrong time to buy.
Right.
If rates.
Hello and welcome to the Finding Idaho podcast, where we talk about the Boise area real estate market. We bring in small businesses and just like to talk about Idaho life in general. Today we have Joe Ackerland from Premier Mortgages. Say hi, Joe.
Hello. Which camera should I be looking
You
at?
can look at all of the
Okay.
cameras
Hello.
if you want. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
We're going to get to Joe in just a moment here, but I want to do a quick market update. It's been a little while since we've done these. And obviously, I'm sure, unless you've been stuck under a rock, you know that the housing market is a little crazy right now. It's going, people keep saying it's tanking, right?
It's tumultuous.
Yes, it is tumultuous. But I just want to give some numbers here real quick for people. Now we're talking just single family, existing and new construction combined. We're going to split it up into Ada County and Canyon County. So for Ada County, in September of 2022, we had a total of 684 sold units, a median sold price of $530,478, and average days on market was 33. Now, from year over year, last September, those numbers are down from 965, so 965 to only 684 this last month. Median sold price was at 525 and went up to 530. So we are almost back to where we were a year ago because the market has been going down. And average days on market then were 16 only. So we've more than doubled how long it's taking to actually get something off the market.
Can I say something?
I would love to.
I can interject? Okay.
Absolutely.
So, but just to clarify though, so median sold price, when we talk about that, that's literally it's the homes sold in that month.
Mm-hmm.
Like 50% were less, 50% were higher.
Right.
Right. So like month to month, it could be extremely different.
Yes.
We can watch it for trends, but it's not like just because it's.
But it's not. Yes, exactly. We're
Correct.
looking at that for trends,
Okay.
specifically. Now, speaking of trends, though, if we go back from August of 2022, so just the month prior to, we had about the same in sold units. Average days on market was a little less at 26, but our median sold price in August was $560,000. So we're down almost $30,000 as far as our median price is concerned. Again, we don't want to take a ton from that, but we can watch that for trends. And July, August, September, it's gone down each month so far. So we'll see what happens. Now, what's interesting is Canyon County actually is a little bit more stable as far as that median home price is concerned. They're holding a little bit better. And so in September, for Canyon County, we had 315 sold units, a median sold price of $422,500, and average days on market at 37. So when you compare that to August of 2022, we had 347 sold units, $425,990 for our median sold price. So we're only down $3,000, which is so insignificant. Like you say, that doesn't really hold a ton. 50% of them are higher, 50% are lower. Average days on market was 25, though, in August. Mm-hmm. So we are certainly keeping things on the market a little bit more. It's interesting, coming off of the last few years, anything that has been on the market for more than 2 weeks, we're like, well, what's wrong with it, right?
I was going to say that's probably the thing that's the hardest for
people to
sellers
realize a lot of times. Yeah, and getting, I've found a lot of times with my sellers, a lot of it has to do with just making sure we're setting the right expectations. But now, we're sitting at actually about almost 3.5 months worth of inventory in both Canyon County and Ada County now. And so what that essentially means, if you don't know, for those of you listening and watching, is that inventory, if we were to not have anything else hit the market and we were to sell at the rate that we have been selling, we would completely run out of inventory in this case about 3.5 months. Or right under that. And so it's interesting when you look at a year ago, we were looking at about 3 weeks worth of inventory. So there was so much less on the market, so many fewer options and where we're actually selling more
What would you say is
in
a
those
healthy?
times too. About right where we're at is pretty
Okay.
healthy. They say, and I have never worked in what's considered a balanced market. I've been a realtor for 5.5 years. 6 months of inventory is what they say is a
Okay.
balanced market. Anything under that is a seller's market. Anything over that is a buyer's market.
Sure.
Coming off of where we've been, we're certainly swinging that pendulum, but we're still in what analysts consider a seller's market. Now, that being said, because of the increase in inventory, buyers definitely have a lot more option now. A year ago, a buyer, it was a take it or leave it. There's
Absolutely.
people waiting behind you, so if you don't want it, get out of the way, right? Now a buyer can actually come in, and you guys know this a little bit because
Right.
you're just about ready to close a
We
house.
are.
Can we
It's gonna be
say
exciting.
that? So Joe's and his family are buying a house right now. They're closing this week.
Yep.
And you guys had a lot more options. You got to look at houses. You got to maybe sleep on it, think about it for a day or two.
And even as we were looking, it was changing, right?
Right.
Like, just say the last month and a half we've been looking.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that change happening when you're watching things closely. But
Right.
at the same time, we listed, I want to say in March or April,
Uh-huh.
and that was at the start of when things started slowing down.
Yeah.
I think if we would have listed a month before, we'd have sold in a couple days.
Real
But
fast.
so as a seller, that was hard for us. Was, well, what's wrong with our house? That's
Mhm.
what the sellers think.
Right.
Is, well, what's wrong with my house? What did I do wrong?
Uh-huh.
That's not.
Or
It's
what did
just-
the realtor do wrong?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Which
If we're all being
we're not-
honest with
I'm not-
ourselves.
we're not
that's what-
pointing fingers
No,
here. No, no. But yeah, it is. It's you just have to get used to. And we had one agent that had made that comment, like, hey, it's just, you know what? Hey, it's not a couple days. It's 3-4 weeks. That's fine.
Right.
And that did kind of settle me down a little bit. But
Mhm.
it's hard to change that mindset. And that honestly helps you understand the mindset of where people are coming from that you're dealing with.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
as we try to manage their fears and expectations.
It is interesting. For me, I haven't gone through a sale, on a personal side since I've become a realtor. And so I look back on how things went and some of the things that we, said or did or freaked out about. And I,
Yeah.
you want to chuckle about it. But going through it again now, as in your case as a lender, I think we've had a couple conversations about this that, it's interesting when you have that personal experience and you kind of want to, call somebody and freak out a little bit.
It's what everybody's
"Okay, it's gonna be all right."
everybody has fears and expectations, and that's
Yes.
what we're always managing.
It's good
to,
for
but-
us all to remember.
But yeah, and right now, could we have waited until March or April of next year, or June or July, to buy and get a better deal? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, that's what's helpful for me on the mortgage side is, when I'm talking to buyers and they're like, yeah, but rates are 7%. And well, it doesn't have to be a 30-year 7% loan.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it will be.
Right.
And so for us, it's not slowing us down. We found a house that we liked.
Uh-huh.
We're buying it. Hopefully in 6 to 12 months, we'll refinance.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we're still capable of
You
staying-
obviously
staying the-
qualified for
we
it,
qualify
sure.
for it. A lot of money. No, but so it's you see stuff where is it the right time to buy? It's the right time to buy if it's what you want.
Sure.
You can always refinance. And a lot of times you just find that we've owned 7 homes
Mm-hmm.
in 15 years, and we've always done well selling them.
Right.
But it's also cyclical anyway, because what we're going to buy, is also a little bit more expensive.
Sure.
So we've done well
You're
that way.
upgrading in that sense.
Yeah, we're upgrading, but
Sure.
it's still, and in fact, that buying that first house, which our first house was $80,000, $84,000. If we hadn't done that, all the trickle down effect, right? But it started with buying that first house
Right.
and having some equity. And it doesn't mean that you have to put it all down to the next one, but now we don't have to worry about any down payment assistance or gift funds, right? We can do it on our own,
Mm-hmm.
but we can hold out some extra cash, and it's just you have all these other options that are
Right.
open to you. And so yeah, it's scary for a lot of people, but the media, which they're not wrong
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but they do dictate most of what the impulses are.
Sure.
I just posted on LinkedIn. There's an article now that's the market's shifting towards being a buyer's market. Well, realistically, it's probably more middle of next year that
Sure.
you see the full effect of that. You're seeing it now, but it's people read
and
those
compared to
things.
where we were a year ago, 2 years ago, it's a big difference for sure. Yeah,
but it's all it's just. I think the biggest thing is working with people that you trust, and if it's your time to buy, you want to buy something, you want to have a home,
right?
And we can work with you to get you in. There isn't any wrong time to buy,
right?
If rates were, and we could sit here and spitball back and forth. You're going to have somebody right now that would watch or listen to this and go, well, yeah, but I remember when rates were 15%. Well, okay, it was 15% on a $180,000 house.
Right.
That's a lot different than.
I think my parents bought like a $30,000 house.
Yeah. So 7% on a $600,000 house. That's a big deal.
Sure.
So it just depends on each person's situation. There is no.
Everybody's different, and I find myself often, right now. Well, frankly, over the last 5 years, even in all markets or all markets I've dealt with, but I found myself sometimes, helping people talk themselves out of buying or selling because it was clear to me this is not what you need to do, right now. And there's several situations and people in my life where I've looked at over the years where, I've essentially talked them out of it. Right. And, sometimes it's not the best time, but it has less to do, I think, with the market, on what's a good time or a bad time, unless we're gonna set aside the investor mindset that's looking at income properties. But if we're talking about you buying your first home, it's so much less about.
But you're listening. You're listening to them.
Yes,
it's not.
Yes,
that's what we're saying. It's not. Unless you're somebody who's like the market's going to crash, then it's a wait and see thing. I can't tell you what does or doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, but at the end of the day, it's not slowing me down. So I can speak from personal experience. We're going to get into the home we like. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't control those forces that end up causing something like that to happen.
Sure.
But the point is, the person you talked about, where you didn't talk them out of it. You might have encouraged them based on what they were saying. Hey, this might not be the right time to buy for these reasons. And that's where the mistakes are made, right? It's you see this all the time on Facebook groups, right? If you peruse the real estate Facebook groups, you're going to see somebody's going to throw out a question like, "Is now the right time to buy?" I just read this last night, and a realtor's going to go, "It is. It absolutely is. It sure is." Well, that's the
right time to buy from me.
I mean, that's the sales. You just want a sale, right?
Right.
But there are people, and I know, and I can totally validate this with you. This is how you would be, is you're going to listen to the person and their situation and understand it, and then tell them based on your experiences, which everybody's experiences are going to be different, what's right for them.
Right.
And that's the same thing I would do.
And so that's why I like working with you. Why we get along.
I did have to pay extra
awesome.
for him to say that.
He's paying quite a bit to be here, folks.
Can I share an example?
Absolutely.
So I had a client 2 weeks ago. I've been working with these guys for months, and they're fully credit approved. But they ended up switching which realtor they were working with. Got under contract on a property, and that realtor said, "You should shop around for realtors or for lenders," and which fine, whatever. So they called the lender that they were recommended, and this lender said, "Well, get his rate, and then I'll tell you mine." So right there, I said, "Well, that I like these clients are awesome."
Sure.
So I just said, "Well, at the end of the day, I can't control who. I just want you to be happy. I have an email proof of it. I just want you to be happy. You're supposed to enjoy this process from start to finish. We don't want you to stress and be all worried. So if that's the one question the guy asked or gal, that should be a red flag for you.
Yeah.
Because did they, there's so many different paths we can take. And in fact, I did keep them as clients because I said, hey, here's the deal. What he didn't offer you was, did he tell you that you have 15 months left on a car loan? You only have $6,000 left to pay on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's $300 a month. If you just pay a little less at closing, put a little less down, and we'll pay off this car loan. Put that extra $300 towards your additional principal each month. What is that going to do for you 6 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever? Are you going to pay off the loan 6 years sooner? I mean, there's a lot of variables.
Sure.
Now. But the point is understanding what their goals are.
Mm-hmm.
If that person doesn't even know, if I know, hey, it's a growing family, this is their starter home. They want to get into one.
Right.
We're probably going to be there 2 or 3 years. Well, how much should we spend in discount points?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on each person's situation.
Right.
So there's
But
plenty
you
of
spend
times.
a ton of money on discount points, you can get whatever rate you want, essentially.
Exactly. Which,
But that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
And that's the difficulty too, right? Because you're working
Right.
with banks and credit unions, and there's no knocking those lenders
Mhm.
either, because they all have their place.
Right.
In fact, if somebody's opting to go for a credit union that has a much lower rate, let's say it's 0.25% lower,
Mhm.
I would say, hey, great, I'm going to keep your file open just in case
Mhm.
something goes awry, and I'll be there for you if you need me.
Right.
But I support you, and odds are it's going to go just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difference. Though it's just helping people understand it, but not from you have to be okay letting people walk away
Right.
too.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's walking away that's best for them.
Yeah, right.
You never know. But I have loved that about you and the way you've structured your business. I feel like we've been in that same boat together.
Right.
Essentially where we genuinely love working with people and helping them. So,
Yep.
and I love first time home buyers. Those are just a kick
the
to
best.
work with. And it's usually the most work for me.
Yep.
I put in the most hours and the most time, but I love teaching. I love, educating them. I love, coming alongside, and I love how excited and happy they are when we get to the finish line,
Totally.
and that's, generally I've found that those first time home buyers almost always, end up resulting in a lifelong client.
They're going to send
And
you their
they're,
family.
and they're friends, like I invite them to events and they're excited, even if they can't come, they're,
Right.
They're excited
You don't
to be
invite me
invited. And
to events.
I invite you all the time.
Okay, that's
Uh-huh.
true. I don't come.
That's right.
No, but it's that's exactly right. And the thing is, I'm going to say it one more time. This is the last time I'll use that phrase.
Uh-huh.
But the fears and expectations, that's what everybody has when they
Yeah.
come into it. It doesn't matter if you're the first-time home buyers, you're going to have more than the rest.
Right.
But everybody has it.
Mhm.
If it's a person that's bought investment properties and they've done 4 or 5 loans with different places, guess what? They have fears and expectations based on their experiences with Rocket Mortgage,
Right.
or whatever banks and credit unions they used.
Mhm.
So in the last week, I've had somebody we're buying an investment property. Well, their experience was with a different company that would do things differently from how I understand it would go from my past life experience. And they're emailing me saying, what's wrong here? Why you're not asking for all this stuff? And well, I'm just going to do it differently, right? We're going to get the same stuff, but it's going to be more of a high touch deal. It's not
Sure.
going to be as stressful. The second I hear they need one thing, I'm not going to text them and say, I need you to send me this, because guess what? I'm going to have to text them 55 times.
Right.
So
and
I'm
that's
gonna-
when it gets stressful.
yeah. So I'm going to but I know, and so I'm managing to what their expectations were with
Right.
the previous place.
Uh-huh.
And now with the first time home buyer, they don't think about what their fears and expectations are.
They don't even know what to be afraid of yet.
Right. They're going off of what, parents are telling them,
Yeah.
which we know how fast things change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the, like when you're putting in your business practice, if you just look at it from that standpoint, don't worry about the process in and of itself of, well, we need to get you pre-approved, then you go find a house, and then we'll go. If you just look at, hey, what would they possibly, and you're anticipating what they're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
you actually make your life a lot easier, because
Right.
you're not getting, you've already thought of things that you can tell them up front and have a conversation with,
Right.
rather than getting texts every 3-4 hours on something they received,
Right.
right? Like you get ahead of the game. And so that's been, but yeah, I agree. First time home buyers are some of the most rewarding,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they can take a lot more work,
Yes.
but the reward is so much better, because you have people that genuinely are appreciative of what you did for them.
Mm-hmm.
And any friend or family member they have, they're going to tell about it. It's
Right.
just, it's a cool thing. It makes you feel good too.
Yeah.
Validates what you do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay, so I know we can't exactly talk rates specifically, and
I'm not taking-
it wouldn't do us any good.
I'm
anyway.
not taking questions.
I'm not. You are absolutely taking questions. But it's. I've had enough conversations with you and other lenders that other what I should preface as good lenders.
Okay.
I feel that are good loan officers, and just had these conversations, and it doesn't do us any good to say, well, here's the rate today,
Right.
because like you say, there's so many variables that go into that without knowing somebody's entire
There's
profile.
literally like 9
there's
things.
there's so many different things that
Yeah.
go into what's going to be best for that person, for that individual. But just from a general perspective, we keep hearing that the feds are raising the rates. Talk just briefly how those rates differ from the actual mortgage rates,
Yeah.
and
So
then kind of, if you can, tie in bonds, to that, and kind of how that
Barry
how those
bonds?
yes, Barry bonds, and
baseball's in.
I'd like to know what
your
your thoughts are about
Barry bonds.
Barry Bonds and the scandal with the.
No,
wasn't he?
that's-
Wasn't he?
it seems like he
I
was.
think there was something involved. I don't remember,
but I'm not a big baseball guy. No, but yeah, rates as far as the markets go. If somebody was to ask me today what are rates at, right? I might say I'd give them a range, honestly, because there's like 9 factors that impact what your specific rate is.
right.
I mean, we first of all, what
Just because
program
somebody
it
can
is.
get it at 6.5 or whatever doesn't mean I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I mean, what program it is, for
Mhm.
instance, how much you're putting down. If you're a first-time home buyer, your credit score. There's so many things that impact
Sure.
what it is for you specifically. So now, like if you're working with a bank, they're most likely lending their own funds,
Mhm.
so they're not going off of the bond market. So
Mhm.
they're going to decide what their rate is. Rate is this, and that's So if 10 people called in, 10 people can get quoted that rate, most likely.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to go into the reasons why you may or may not want to use a bank.
Mhm.
I'll leave it at that. But yeah, as far as like in the bond market, when the Fed says they're going to raise rates,
Mhm.
they're referring to the overnight borrowing rate for the banks. So banks, when there's a reserve requirement for banks, so they can lend out funds, but they have to have a certain amount, usually 10% in reserve.
Mhm.
And if they don't have that, then they can borrow from other banks or from the Fed overnight. That's the rate that when the Fed says they're going to hike rates by 0.75%, that's the rate that increases.
Mhm.
What that means is your credit cards from the banks, your auto loans, your home equity lines of credit, those things go up
Mhm.
because it just became more expensive for the bank to borrow.
To borrow their money.
Those are unrelated to the bond market.
Sure.
Now, usually they work in sort of lockstep, but not simultaneously. So, in fact, not this last time, but the time before, when the Fed raised rates, interest rates on mortgages went down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just there's so many factors even in that in the bond market, right? We're responding to economic data that comes out, or the Fed meeting, or whatever. There's so many things that can cause that. So for me personally, not to keep it high level with the rate conversation.
Uh-huh.
So Barry Habib is a major. If you're in the mortgage arena, you know who Barry Habib is. He's he has a course that's a certified mortgage advisor.
He sounds amazing.
He is great.
Uh-huh.
So I took his course though, and honestly, that was incredibly eye opening because you see, you go in depth and learn about the patterns in the bond market,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, it worked for us personally. A week ago, or a week and a half ago, we were looking at locking our rate,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't lock it the day I should have, and the next day things were spiraling, but there was a certain pattern that I would never have recognized had I not
Mhm.
taken that whole course, right? But it was so every lender is getting the alert to lock, bottom
Mhm.
line, and it's most of them. Let's say if they get that alert to lock, it's 3:00. The rates have already deteriorated quite a bit by then. They go lock it. That's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read the patterns, it could be that you wait a day or two. You're advising the client. I don't think it's time to lock, and here's why. The risk is if I was wrong, I might lose them.
Right.
Right, because for all I know, they're shopping other lenders. They lock in a rate over here, but I also win a lot of those because, for instance, you look at patterns. If somebody was to recognize what happens today, a lot of that isn't just random. You can see it coming, and you can look back at history, 10, 20, 30 years. It happens the same all the time.
Sure.
Generally. And so that making the right lock decisions, that can make a huge impact. So the same rate, it could be the same rate. It could be, maybe it's 6.875, but for somebody who locked at the wrong time, well, maybe that cost them 10 grand. Where if you lock a couple days later, when you waited for this pattern to play out, you might get it for 6,000.
Nice.
So that's where the difference comes in. But there's a lot that goes into that.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of.
I forget what you had more to the question. I can't think back far enough.
No, that very much sums it up, pretty well. So, so as far as the bond market is concerned, then how is that? I know they're not necessarily correlated,
right?
And yet, when the bonds go up, that's typically a good thing for the interest rate, the mortgage rate, right?
Right.
Is that
volatile? Is what I'd say right now.
It's just.
I mean, honestly,
it's a lot of
we waited a day to lock, and I'm looking at the bond market the next day and going, honestly, how far it slid, not last Friday, but the Friday before. I'm thinking, well, if we didn't lock the day before, we might not have gotten our house because the rates might have increased that. But Idaho housing, there was one day that I looked at their rates, and I'm trying to get somebody locked, and some of those programs were up to 7.75. They're not right now, but I'd still say if I was quoting somebody, I'd quote them a rate of, I'd say, hey, in general, I'd say you're going to be anywhere from 6.875 to 7.25. But you could easily be below or above that.
Sure.
Depending on the situation, right? And that's where I guess that's where the advising portion comes in, because if you call someone and say, what's your rate? And that's what they deliver is a rate. There's something missing there because we don't know. For instance, so I have a program that I put these things into. So I got a buyer and they have a 800 credit score or 750, and they've got 4.5% on the purchase agreement,
right,
to use as seller credits. Okay, well, I can't use the 4.5% if it's conventional loan. I can only use 3% of that, so I'd lose some of that. They want to keep. I know what their goals are from talking to them. They want to keep more cash in their pocket. They want to put as little as they can down. Okay, so these are the ones that said, hey, well, somebody else said they want to know your rate first. Okay,
right.
We got past that. Then it was, hey, another bank said they could do a conventional loan. Yeah, we can. Here's why in this situation it would normally, yes, it makes sense. In fact, you could do it here and it would work just fine. But based on what your goals are and what you've told me, this is why I'm doing it this way. And they're sticking with me.
Right.
And you could have 10 different lenders watching this and maybe weigh in and be like, no way you don't go conventional. But that's just where you do the advising. You give them the options. You can put it side by side. The program I use has a bar graph or a line chart. It goes this way, whatever you call that. And it'll show you the cheapest loan over 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. And that's the thing. A lot of people are buying when we bought that condo, our first condo back in 2008 for $84,000. Well, really, anytime we've ever bought a house, we've never talked about what our goals were.
Right.
But we have had a plan, family-wise, right?
Sure.
That first condo, we didn't plan on living there for very long. That was, hey, let's get into this home. And, we knew we were going to be expanding the family.
Right.
That was not a forever home.
Right.
Maybe that would have been a 3 to 5 year home. I don't know what I paid in discount points.
Right.
Couldn't tell you. So, and that should tell you I've done just fine.
Right.
It doesn't, at the end of the day, you're going to be fine.
You're going to be fine.
But as a savvy consumer, I was not.
Right.
I don't remember that. but had somebody talk through, I know they had the capability then too to ask those questions and go, well, here's why it might make more sense for you guys to take a higher rate,
Right.
maybe even get a credit because what would have been tight then was cash on hand. So it actually might have made more sense to take a higher rate and get a credit towards my closing costs.
Right.
And then at that time, was it? I don't want to get into politics, but was it Obama that did the tax credit for first time home buyers, or was that?
I think it was before that.
Was it before that?
Yeah.
It had to been
because we got a tax credit and we bought in 2008.
We bought,
I think.
Okay.
For.
Okay. Well, whatever it was, we got
anyway.
like an $8,000 tax credit that we literally put back into. That was huge.
Yeah.
Because we put that into upgrading the appliances and light fixtures, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, that at that time our needs were different, and so now I know enough to be, when I'm talking to the lender, I can say, hey, here's what I want.
Right.
But most 99.9% of the people can't do that.
So they don't know what they want.
Right.
But that's where I would say for me, and we gotta wrap things up here soon. But I was gonna say for me when I'm dealing with clients, I'm trying to touch people and talk with them, months before they're actually ready to buy.
Right.
And I'm always encouraging them to have those initial conversations with a lender because there's so much of that does make a difference, and I mean, we were just talking about this last week of, a couple that's I've been talking to them for a year and a half, and now they're finally getting ready to buy, and they're kind of having some questions as to, okay, what debt do we need to pay down, or what should we be looking at, and they're probably still 6 or 8 months away from being ready, and yet, getting people in that mindset of, don't be afraid to come and ask questions. Don't be afraid to, even if we're not, ready to go pull your credit and everything, you've got an idea. People generally have an idea of where they're at. And if you've got questions, we can help with some of that. If it's super intense financial planning, I've got people that we can send, somebody for that too, that, maybe you're 3 years away from actually being ready to buy a house, but there's people to talk to get on that right path. And so I'm always encouraging people, come and let's talk, let's have those conversations, let's make that plan, because I'm not here to convince you to try to buy a house in the next month or two, and if that's what's best for them, I would also encourage them, don't shy away from it. If if this is what you want to do, it's absolutely not something you need to shy away from. But helping people see, as a realtor and, as a lender for you, it's so much more about that individual person's needs and their long-term goals. And that might mean you start planning now for what you want to do in 2025. Turns out I'm going to probably need a commission check in 25 as
You're
well.
You're going to need one.
As well as, I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah. It's interesting because the renters out there, right? Like you're going to have renters that are, I'm going to wait out the housing market. But how many renters, I mean, for me personally, this past year, I can think of 10 different individuals. That's probably being modest in the number, that have gotten, when the market was hot, they were getting letters from their landlords that want to sell, right? Because they want to take advantage of it. You have 30 days to either buy or get out of here. That is when when you've got a family of, you're working 40 plus hours a week, both couples, you've got 3 kids. That's not the kind of thing you want to deal with.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's almost too late then, because you come into it. Well, we've got these issues we need to overcome. We can overcome them, but it might take us 30 to 60 days.
Or
so
4 or 5 months.
Exactly. But so there's no problem with, and people, there's misconceptions too when somebody thinks, oh, I don't want to have my credit report pulled because it's going to drop my score. The only thing that drops your score is missing a payment or having, way too much debt load out there, those sorts of things, a foreclosure, a bankruptcy, all those things. Yeah, that's going to negatively impact your credit score.
Right.
one missed payment, that's going to have the most dramatic effect on your credit score, right? Like more so than a foreclosure or bankruptcy would, at least initially, because your score is going to have the biggest drop for one 30-day late. But something like having a credit report pulled, yes, it might drop your score 3 to 5 points for a month. You're not even going to notice it.
Right.
And then it's going to go right back to where it was. That's how it works. I've been in finance for 17 years.
Sure.
And then on the mortgage side, people don't realize that you can, in a 45-day window, you can have your credit pulled unlimited times, and it counts as one pull. So there's no, and that's supposed to be that way. So you can shop around, you can make sure you're getting the best deal, you can feel comfortable with who you're working with.
Right.
But so I guess I could go back and name names for people that we had a conversation, they were starting to plan ahead, but decided not to fill out the application, right? Which I always call a questionnaire because an application seems way too aggressive. All it is, hey, you're just giving me the information.
Right.
If we do it over the phone, we don't call it anything. We just, hey, let's talk through this. But if it's something I got to send them, I call it, hey, fill out this questionnaire, because that isn't going to automatically pull credit. I have to do it. But this is going to give me the information I know to even see where we go from here.
Right.
Rather than me physically asking you, hey, what's your social security number? What's your date of birth?
Right.
All that stuff. It's a questionnaire. But those are things that when you get through that information with people, now you have a plan. And so many times I've had that happen where they come back and they go, hey, we just got a letter. Our landlord just told us we have 60 days to get out of here.
Right.
And it's just a really tight window. And if we would have just done it. But honestly, one of the main deterrences they have is the credit issue. So I don't want it to affect my credit. You're fine. You're going to be This fine. Is like, you should do this so we have a plan. Like, it would be better off even if you're a year out. I'd say, yeah, talk to a lender. Let's put a plan in place. We'll call it a clear mortgage plan.
Right.
So that and as the buyer, I can tell them, as from a lender standpoint, hey, here's what you want your debt to income ratio to be at. Here's how you can kind of figure that out on your own. Right. When it gets to this point. So just be thinking of the things that you buy and sell or whatever the next year, and the stuff you put on credit, and what you're making and what your anticipated, pay increases are going to be. Just know this, depending on, and here's your credit score. Okay, if I can give you a little roadmap so we can increase that. FHA, we can do FHA, that's fine. But here's how we can get in the best position.
Right.
And that's fine if it's a year out.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Awesome. I love it. Well, hey, dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
For those of you watching and listening, reach out if you've got any questions about the market, about rates and your situation. If you want to ask us questions, we're happy to do that. I'll have all of Joe's contact info below as well, so you can reach out to him. And, of course, you're always welcome to reach out to me, and we'll get you in touch with who you need to get in touch with. So hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your fall, and enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
It was good. You were doing so well.
Thank you.
But thanks for having me on, and it's nice to actually be able to wear some warmer clothes in the morning, isn't it? I wear like a nice warm vest or sweatshirt. I can't wait for. I'm from Minnesota, so I'm like the winter.
You're ready for this. I like it.
Oh, but thanks, man.
All right, you guys enjoy. Thank you.